upon a time, amethyst was considered to be one of the 5 traditional cardinal gemstones, along with diamonds, rubies, emeralds, and sapphires. In fact, for thousands of years, because of this beautiful purple color, amethyst was only worn by royalty, kings, queens, emperors, and priests. Until about the 1800s, when they found a huge supply of it, the value of it decreased. It wasn't rare anymore. Something to think about in your own life. Discover the value of your story. Bonjour, comment ça va? Et toi, ça va très bien. Ni hao, hola, buongiorno. Bienvenue, Wanyin, bienvenidos, benvenuta, and welcome. Welcome to another exciting episode of Gem Hunter Stories. My name is Barry B. Mixon, and I am a gemological storyteller. And each and every week, I get an amazing opportunity to take you on a journey to places you've never been before, to hear stories you've never heard before. Each week, I get one magnificent moment to take you on a mental, physical, spiritual adventure into the art, science, history, and magic of gemstones, precious metals, and fine jewelry. The whole history of mankind really revolves around gemstones and precious metals. So what I hope to do on this show is to empower you. Use those stories to encourage you to discover the value of your own stories. Well, today is February 1st. It's really always cool to start a month on the first date. So happy birthday to all my Gem Hunter family who happen to be born in February, because this month we're going to, not only is it February and the gemstone for this month is amethyst, but it also gives us an opportunity to talk about Black History Month as well. So throughout this whole month, we're going to have a really great opportunity to take you on that journey, to let you see how gemstones relate to people. And not just in this case, in this month, not just people in general, but just people in regards to just African American descent or African descent. Thank you, Barbara. So what this month, this episode, we're going to talk about is how to be extraordinary in the world of sameness and mediocrity. Read that again. How to be extraordinary in a world of mediocrity and sameness. All right. Or sameness and mediocrity. I got to read what I'm writing. Okay. So this month we're talking about amethyst. And many people love amethyst. As far as I started to create this show, a lot of people was like, oh my God, this is my favorite stone. I love this stone. And amethyst is a breathtaking gemstone. It has been used for thousands of years. The Egyptians, in fact, one of the things they found in King Tut's tomb when they opened up King Tut's tomb was rings and jewelry made out of amethyst. Amethyst is a breathtaking gemstone. It's been around for thousands of years. But what most people don't understand is that amethyst is made out of silicon dioxide. That's it. Amethyst is quartz. The chemical composition of amethyst is the most simplest two elements on Earth: silicon, and oxygen. This is the molecular formula. Or the chemical formula. And so what silicon dioxide is sand. Yeah. Every time you see sand on the beach, anywhere in the world, when you're looking at sand, what you're looking at is quartz. What you're looking at is silicon dioxide. And when I began to study gemstones in general, but in particular amethyst, what amazed me is how something that can be so ubiquitous, something that can be literally everywhere, and yet something special comes out of that. Something truly unique. In fact, silicon dioxide or silicon and oxygen is two of the highest percentage of minerals on Earth, of elements on Earth. So literally, if you look to the right, that's oxygen. That's oxygen. That's how much the percentage of oxygen is here on Earth. And the other section of this circle is silicon. Take a second to think about that. Think about how silicon, you have two basic elements. There's 118 elements in the world, and of the Earth's structure, of the Earth's core, crust, the two things are silicon and oxygen. Oxygen is silicon. So out of that comes something extraordinary. And of course, you know, on the Gem Hunter show, what I do is I take that analogy and show you how it applies to yourself. Because this is us. This is us, a grain of sand. There are 8 billion people on the planet. 8 billion. Of course, they say in about 5 years, there's going to be another 9. There's going to be another billion. So 9 billion. Well, let's start what we have right now. 8 billion people on the planet. So basically, this is who we are. We are grains of sand in a world of sand. And silicon oxide. This is who we are. Just the only difference between silicon dioxide and us is that we have a different name. Barry, Susie, Barbara, whatever. You know, whatever your name is, that's who you are in the whole scheme of things. So how do we become extraordinary in a world of sand? In the sand world of everything around us is the same. We are all human beings. To eyes, I'm starting to say two heads, to eyes, to ears, a nose, a mouth, to arms, to legs. We are human beings. So our species is very similar in regards to just number and how much the quantity is sand. But yet out of that comes amethyst. Out of that comes something truly unique. Now, what people need to understand about amethyst is, first you have to understand, one, that it's quartz. It's made out of silicon dioxide. So there's a lot of, we'll talk about it this month, all the different gemstones that come from quartz. But today, what I want to do is concentrate on just amethyst. Because what people don't realize is that amethyst does not grow purple all the way through. Amethyst actually is, again, silicon and oxygen, one molecule of silicon, 2 molecules of oxygen coming together. So there's nothing necessarily unique about that. As I said, most 22% of the Earth is made of just straight silicon dioxide, those two elements to come together. But what most people don't understand is that what makes amethyst special, what makes it unique, is just a hint of iron. Now, those of you who have followed my show in the past understand that all gemstones, most gemstones are what we call allochromatic, meaning that you have the basic structure of it, and then you put something in it to make it interact with the light. So when you take silicon dioxide and put trace amounts of iron in it, you get that purple color. But the purple color, two things you need to know. The purple color is not stable. That's one. It is basically, it's in the center. It's called a color center. The iron sits in that structure, and then it has to be irradiated. It has to activate the molecules in order to create that color. And the color doesn't come all the way through. Most of the time, the color is only at the top, almost all the time. That, in fact, that's a defining characteristic of amethyst, that the color does not go out through the whole crystal. It's only at the top. Remember those sayings that the cream rises to the top? That's amethyst. And so for amethyst, you put trace amounts of iron in it to get it. But basically, so here's your saying. Here you are as a person, 8 billion people, and the molecular structure of who you are. We are all human beings, but there's something special inside of you. There's something that's inside of you, whether it be your education, whether it be your family background, whether it be the environment that you grew up in. That's your iron. That's your iron. And from that comes something extraordinary. I mean, we live in a world where everybody, especially as you guys know, I teach, and it amazes me of how many people want to do the same thing. They want to dress the same way. They want to look like this person or this model. They want to emulate. So there's a sameness to the world. And yet out of that comes something, or people who choose to be something else, who choose to be something different. So what amethyst does is, amethyst to me is a representation of what we can do as people. We can change. Here's crystal amethyst. As you can see, most of the bottom part of the crystal is clear. In fact, those of you who know quartz, those of you who are into spiritual healing, and we'll talk about the spiritual aspects of amethyst later on in the month. But right now, I just want you to concentrate on the chemical structure of it, how it looks. So when you look at amethyst, you see at the bottom is clear. So those of you who are into, as I was saying, into quartz, this is your rock crystal. This is your clear quartz that doesn't have a lot of value because, again, there's so much of it. And once amethyst is either irradiated, meaning it grew up with something with radiation around it that activated the molecules, or is heated. So when I say irradiation, I'm also talking about the sun. So it's heated, and that activation, what that heat or irradiation does is heats up the molecules to the point where as it begins to cool, you see the purple color. That's what amethyst is. That's what amethyst is to get people. Silicon dioxide. And I'm going to keep making you going back and forth between silicon dioxide, the words, the symbol, and sand to get you to understand that every time you look at amethyst, with all these beautiful gemstones that you see, what you're looking at is the most basic element on earth. Take a second to think about that. Those of you who are going through, and I've gone through it myself, going through depression, going through self-esteem issues, going through, you got fired, or Twitter just fired a whole bunch of people, or laid off a whole bunch of people. So think about how those feelings of inadequacy, those of you who are trying to do something different, whether it be a show, your own podcast, your business. If you are running, let's say, a pizzeria, and you come from a place like New York or Chicago or even France, where there's a whole bunch of pizzerias, pizza restaurants, what makes you different than all the rest? Yes, you are serving food. There are thousands of restaurants that serve food, but what makes you different? What makes you amethyst? How does that work? That's what we're going to talk about. You see the color is only at the top, and it's not extremely, but it's rare. So here you have a chemical composition that exists all over the world. Sand is everywhere. Think about every beach you've gone to. Think about every time you've gone to the islands, the Caribbean, the islands off of Africa. Think about all Australia. Think about most of the whole continent of Australia is silicon dioxide. Of course, opal. That's where opal comes from. At least the best opal comes from there. Silicon dioxide. So within that basic structure of silicon dioxide, you have different things that make it unique. Does that make sense? Leave a comment if that makes sense to you. And then you can begin to see, this is a geo. And amethyst is one of those gemstones that come in huge geomes. I mean, like a lot of people have them in their house. These big giant geomes that sometimes I've seen one 10 feet tall. I've gone into someone's house where the geome was 10 feet tall. And as you can see, here's the rock, here's the matrix on the outside, and here is the white border. And then as you can see, going towards the top of the gemstone is the color that we highly prize. So here is all the pizzerias, and I don't know why pizza, maybe I'll have a pizza later on. I don't know why pizza is striking me today, but here is all the pizzerias in your city, all the pizza restaurants in your city. And of those pizzerias, here you are, that special, something that special ingredient, that the things that made you who you are comes out. Amethyst. Different levels of amethyst. And all comes from sand. And when I started to think about it, I think about just how many people in their life want to be that, want to be something different. All of us grow up wanting to be, once upon a time. What do you remember the old question when you were a kid? What do you want to be when you grow up? Remember your teacher asking you to write down an essay. What do you want to be when you grow up? So basically, all of us was looking at ourselves at some point and said, what do I want to do? What do I want to do in this life? What do I want to create in the short amount of time that all of us are here? We've lost movie stars and different actors and actresses. The woman who played Shirley and Laverne and Shirley, she passed away. We've had so many people pass away for a variety of reasons. So we all know that we are here for just a short amount of time. So what type of amethyst or gemstone do you want to be? How do you become, look at this ring. How do you become that? In the sea of everybody wants to be the same. Want to be to wear the same shirt. I look at the TikTok things from time to time because it's really like addictive. You look at it and you see beautiful woman, beautiful woman, beautiful woman, beautiful woman, beautiful. And after a while, there's a sameness to that. You can't even tell the difference because everyone wants to look and be the same. So the thing that I get out of gemstones is, how do you take a basic molecular structure? And this is not just for amethyst. This is for a lot of gemstones. But what gemstones show us, what gemstones represent, is how you can be something different. You can be more. You can be silicon dioxide and still become this. And as we go through all these pictures and photos, you see that even though they are amethyst, even though they are quartz, even though that they are all silicon dioxide, they all come up, but they're different. There's a difference to it, even though it's very similar. So the purpose of this show, what I want you to get out of it is, this is us. This is who you are, living wherever you are living, anywhere in the world, because silicon dioxide can be found everywhere in the world. Asia, Europe, Africa, South America, North America, Australia. Probably the only place that you don't find silicon dioxide is Antarctica. So out of the 7 continents, 6 of them have silicon dioxide, and I'm sure it has it. It's just Australia. I'm sorry. What? Wow. I can't think of the continent. It has it to Antarctica. Antarctica has silicon dioxide. It's just that it has so much ice, which again is another crystal. So how do we do that and to become this? How do we look at who we are? Again, what is the main theme of this program? This program is about value and how the definitions of value, how we apply it to gemstones. If I'm appraising this gemstone, I'm looking at the color. You can see amethyst, one of the things that amethyst has what's called color centers. The color is not always smooth. So you can see in this gemstone, you can see that the color is a little bit more darker, more intense in the upper regions, the up quadrant of this gemstone, and more lighter in the bottom. So the lapidary, the person who cuts that gemstone, has to manipulate it and cut it in such a way where what you see, where it maximizes its interaction with the light. That's what we have to do. We have to figure out who we are. We know that we are a basic structure, silicon dioxide. We know this. We know that basically there are 8 billion people on the planet. Let's not even take about the planet. Let's just talk about your neighborhood. Let's just talk about your city. If you live in New York, you're talking about 10 million people. Chicago, 6-7 million people. Shanghai, where many of my students come from, 26 million people. How do you separate yourself? How do you go from this to this? What is your value? What is that thing that's inside of you that makes you more? What is it that makes you more? That makes you this? So what we can do when we're looking at ourselves, I think that gemology, or looking at gemstones, and I think that's our relationship with gemstones. We see gemstones even on a spiritual level. We see the commonalities between what a gemstone is and who we are. Because ultimately, what are we made out of? We are made out of elements. Silicon is in us. Oxygen, we know we can't live without oxygen. So even though, and I know there's people out there, well, he's not, a gemstone is not alive. I know that. That's the thing. The fact that it's not alive. The fact that we find so much value in something that's inorganic. But the principles are the same. And the reason why I talk about this, let's go back to so here's your amethyst, silicon dioxide. So what's the analogy? What's the analogy between silicon dioxide, that amethyst, and who we are? And the fun part about doing this program, as I say each week, it's still the exciting adventure. And you can tell just from my energy, each week I'm really excited about doing the show, because each week between last Wednesday and this Wednesday, I start looking at things. And what happens is I start thinking about things that I've experienced in my past. And even though I might have liked it or loved it then, it takes it to a whole nother level, because I discover what that thing or that experience or that movie or that music I heard, what it means on a deeper level. And as I started thinking about this show, I thought about a movie that I saw back in 2006. Again, I started gemology in 2008, and I saw this movie in 2006 called The World's Fastest Indian with Anthony Hopkins. And if you ever get a chance to see this movie, it is beautiful. It is a beautiful, absolutely beautiful movie. And what this movie is about is this man named Burt Munro. You never heard of Burt Munro. Most of you never, if you didn't see this movie or you're not into motorcycles, you would never know who this person is. This guy, Burt Monroe, and he did this movie the movie was called The World's Fastest Indian, which I'm not sure if that name would work nowadays with, so much the political correctness and everything else. But in 2006, The World's Fastest Indian. And what this movie was about was that Burt Monroe, this man who was from New Zealand, that little island that's off Australia, just to get your geographic location together, New Zealand, a little small town in New Zealand. And he had dreams of being, all his life, he liked things that went fast. He was always into fast, running fast, horses, cars. And he literally bought, in 1920, he bought a motorcycle. I forgot the CCs. It was smaller than 850 CCs. And on this motorcycle that he bought in 1920, this is a 1920 Scout. 1920. And yet he literally broke the world's land speed record. This is him. This is not him. This is Anthony Hopkins playing him. And anything Anthony Hopkins does, it's, just bring a tissue because he's going to say something beautiful and deep. So again, another reason to watch this movie. But this is his motorcycle with the covering on it. This is what he stores the motorcycle in. And he went to the Bonneville Salt Flats. He traveled all the way with just that dream that he had. He traveled all the way from New Zealand on a boat that he had to work to get across. He didn't have enough money. He was old. He was already 67 years old. 67 years old. And in his mind, he just wanted to do something. And so many of us feel that. Like, what am I going to do? You read the news, you watch TV, you listen to radio, and this person's gone, this person's gone, this person's gone, this person's gone. COVID, we had, the last time I looked at the numbers, 1.1 million people are no longer with us. Friends, family, some of you watching this show have lost friends and family, mothers, fathers, uncles, brothers, sisters, lost it. And so all of us at some point in time, we ask ourselves, what do you want to do? And I guess this movie resonated with me when I saw it, because I remember thinking to myself at that point, looking at my own life, thinking to myself, what am I going to do? And here's Bert. This is the house he lived in. These are his kids. This was the motorcycle. We're not talking about something fancy. He bought this in 1920 and spent 20, 30 years just working in it. Just literally, nothing was fancy about this motorcycle. Nothing. He made the engines. He took old pieces of cars, and you'll see the movie. He took two pieces. He says the perfect mixture. 2 pieces of Chevy engines and 1 piece of Ford, and he melted it into a smelt, and he poured it into a mold. And this is what he was making his cylinders with. And he kept doing it again and again and again and again. And the kids around him loved him because, kids love when somebody has a dream, because that's what kids are about once upon a time. And this is him. This is in his motorcycle. Look at it. That was it. That was the motorcycle. That was the dream that he had. This is Burt Monroe. This is the actual, nothing fancy. He bought a car. He rented a car. He traveled from, New Zealand, all the way to the Bonneville Salt Flats in Utah. One of the flattest places on earth. It's made out of crystal, sand, crystallized sand. That's what he's made. That's what he did. And he traveled. He broke the world land speed record of 205 miles per hour. Or for those of you who are European countries, 331 kilometers per hour. He did it on a basic bike. And the thing that moved me about his story was it was a dream. He came from nowhere. He was just one of those 6 or 7 billion people on the planet, and he had a dream. And he had that dream again, that iron, that substance inside of who he is. He died. Who he was, and he let that substance, that thing inside of him grow, where it was not something that he had to do. It's something. It's not something that he could do. It's something that he had to do. And we'll talk about more of that when we come back from the other side. As you look at this beautiful amethyst, gold, diamond, and garnet ring that costs $26,500, always keep in mind that amethyst is a semi-precious gemstone. Discover the value. Your story. Thank you for that. When you think about amethyst, and that's a point that another point that I want to bring up. Amethyst used to be one of the truly great gemstones in the world. Amethyst was one of, as I said early in the earlier gem bit, amethyst was a cardinal stone. A cardinal stone is the quintessential gemstones. Diamonds, rubies, emeralds, sapphires, and once upon a time, amethyst. Amethyst was that gemstone. Amethyst was a gemstone. The amethyst was the gemstone that only the kings and queens and nobles and the priests, people in the religious arts, they were the only people that could wear this color. Even now, when people look at royalty, the color that they use is amethyst. That purple color relates, and this purple is a complete, and I'm going to do a whole show on the color of purple and how long it took for them to come up with a dye. Purple used to be that mystery color. People, you would die, you would be killed if you wore this purple, if you were not someone of that level. And for thousands of years, I mean, literally, when you look at the history of mankind and the history of gemstones, which of course correlates indirectly or directly, you see the significance of amethyst. And the only reason why amethyst is considered a semi-precious gemstone is because they found a lot of amethyst about the 1800s. So the 18th century, they found, or 19th century, they found multiple mines of amethyst in Brazil, in Uruguay. And so once that happened, so here we go, we got gemstones, we got sand all over the world. Sand. And amethyst used to be considered rare. It was just the richness of it. Amethyst, when people saw amethyst, they understood so many things about it. And because it's quartz, if you understand that, and again, we'll get into this more later on in the month, but when you get into what quartz is a healing stone. Because, and think about it, if the two most abundant elements on earth is silicon and oxide, and when you put those together, that's what quartz is. And when you think about it, how the place it plays as far as percentage wise in the earth, in who we are, in the structure, the crust, the crust of the earth, then you begin to understand that even basic, I won't say basic man, early man, ancient civilizations understood that on a spiritual level. They understood that This substance came from something like this, came from sand. And out of that sand came that. How is that any different than us? How is that any different than the person that you are? I know that a lot of people may not recognize your greatness. Some of us are home and we drive our cars and we go to work and we know who we are as people. We know who we are. We know that energy that's inside of us, and yet we may work in a place. We may be in a relationship where people don't see us as amethyst. They don't see what makes us special. They don't see that that's who we are. Understand that beautiful ring, and I know, and let me take a second. I know I'm being completely cruel right now because there are so many people watching this show right now who are just sitting there, not even hearing what I'm saying. They're just looking at the ring and saying, wow. And that's a good thing. But what I want you to get out of it is that's who you are. When you understand the value of your story, understand that the relationship, the business relationship, the personal relationship that you may be in, the relationship that you have with yourself, you may be silicon dioxide. Yes, you're a human being, but there's something special about you. There is something inside of you that makes you different. And just because people don't recognize the story, the value of amethyst doesn't make it any less valuable. This is a $30,000 ring. This is, I think it's a 16 karat amethyst and gold ring with diamonds. So when you go to the store and you buy this ring, go ahead and try to tell the jeweler, oh, well, that's a semi-precious stone. But that's what people say to you. When you ask for a raise because you know what kind of value you bring to the company, don't let somebody tell you that, well, we're not going to pay you that because you're a fill in the blank. I'm still amazed at how many women around the world get paid less than men simply because they're women. That's like taking amethyst. Again, amethyst is silicon dioxide. It's sand, okay? And then something happened to it, something that made it special, something that made it unique. Extrapolate out to who you are. There's something about you. You went to a certain school. Your grandmother taught you how to make cookies when you were 3. You were always into music. You used to run. I think about my niece who was into track and field because she ran. From everything she did was like, and I said, why don't you run? So here's this person, your boss, your husband, your wife, your kids, your work colleague, telling you, you're just a semi-precious stone. You're not this person. Think about amethyst. Think about what this ring is, what this represents. This represents something that is unique, something that can be found all over the world, but yet something special happened to this. Something special happened to this. And of course, it didn't grow up looking like that. It had to be shaped. It had to be cut. It had to be polished. That's what you went through. That's what Bert had to do. Bert broke the world's land speed record. He was 67 years old, and that record still exists today. He had nothing but a dream. He saved up some money. He got on a boat and took him, think about it, on a boat from New Zealand all the way. I think he traveled to Los Angeles. He went to Los Angeles. Then he had to travel cross country to the Bonneville Salt Flats in Utah. When he got there on his bike, they looked at him like, man, you can't use that. There's no safety. He didn't have a safety suit on. He used to keep the gasoline in the car, in the bike. He used a cork that he used. I'm sorry, the cork from the bottle that when he got married. His wife was long since passed, but that was the memory of that cork. He used it to keep the gasoline in, and the guy was like, "What is this?" And he said, "That's what I keep the gas in." He took the tires on a speed vehicle. They don't have a tread. He took a cutting knife, one of those little boys that he hung around, little kids hung around. He took a carving knife and cut the tread off of an old motorcycle bike to make it like speed worthy. And he went to the Bonneville Salt Flats with that. And nothing could stop him. Nothing could deter him. In fact, when you watch the movie, they tried to stop him. They were like, "Man, you can't." And he just said, "I'm going." He went out there, and the first time he went out there, not even officially, he just went out there just to test it, because he wanted to see what he could do, how fast that he could do. He wanted to live that dream. So he just went out. And they tried to chase him. And he was, like, "Okay, this is an old man. How fast can he go?" And they were going 50, 60, 100, 120, 150. I mean, these were trucks, cars, 1960 cars and stuff on this. And he was gone. How many of us need to do that? How many of us need to be this, to understand who we are as people? That's what this show is about. That's what this is my mission in life, to get people to understand the value of their own story. Because when I was homeless, when I went through that stuff, I didn't think I was anything. I thought I was just a rock. I thought I was just sand. That there was nothing special about me. And there's so many of us are feeling that. So many of us don't see who we are. I talk to people all around the world who do things, and because it's easy for them, all right? Because and I told you some of my viewers that I love, and I don't call names because there's so many, but I know people who do social work and make you feel like, wow. I know people I know a woman who literally helps people make their transition to the next life. That's her job. I know someone who has been teaching history for 18 years, history, getting young people's minds to understand who you are as an African American is based on what happened because of not just Martin Luther King, but so many people. My good friend Charlie, who's watching today. Hey, Charlie. Charlie's not just he's gone through his challenges, and in his challenges, and I'm gonna bring Charlie on this week because we're gonna talk about something special. But in his challenges, in the things that he had, how he grew up, he became something extraordinary. And you have to see that in yourself. You have to see who you are. Look at this. It's not perfect. You see the color zoning all on one side. So if you were to cut this, you would have to maximize the color on one side. But someone chose to understand that it's beautiful, even in this imperfect state. That's who you are. You are beautiful. You are no different than this. It's just that you have to see it. And you have to make the decision. Are you going to cut this gemstone? Are you going to redesign who you are? What elements? That's what makes us better than garnet. I'm sorry, garnet. What makes us better than gemstones? We have an opportunity to change what's inside of us. This gemstone, this amethyst will look like this forever. Forever. It is always, it is and shall always be amethyst. It shall always be silicon dioxide with just a hint of iron. That's not who we are. We can be whatever we want to be. I mean, within limits. I mean, I would love to play. I would love to dance for the Bolshoi Ballet, but I just don't have. I just don't have those elements inside of me. But what can I do with the love that a passion that I may have for ballet? What can I do with the things that I want? I told you all the time, and Barbara hates this, but when I say, that my ex-wife said that I was a fountain of useless information. And I say it like that because that's what woke me up. That insult that she had. You're just a fountain of useless information. What are you going to do with all that? Thank you, honey. Thank you. Because you made me realize sitting in a field, that's what I was doing construction work as I was working through gemology school. I said to myself, what are you going to do? What are you going to do with, yes, she's right. I like talking. I do. But what are you going to talk about? This is the promise that I made to God, that I wanted to help people realize what their value is, who they are. Look at this gemstone. Look at the difference. They're both amethyst. Look at the difference between this one and this one. And this one. Look at this. Imagine this semi-precious. You got to laugh when you think about it. This is a semi-precious gemstone. There's somebody that says, well, it's not a diamond. It's not a ruby. It's not an emerald. It's not a sapphire. But yet, if someone gave you this ring and said to you, baby, I love you. You mean the world to me. My life is so much better because of that. And they gave you this stone. They presented this stone to you because of the way they made you feel. This stone would have value to you. This ring would have value for you forever. And what is it? You got amethyst, silicon dioxide. You got gold, which is an element by itself. And then you got diamonds, and diamonds are made out of carbon. So you have basic elements put together in such a way that when that person looked at that ring, that person said, this represents, and you put your name. This represents the love that I feel for this person. Again, amethyst. Look at the faceting on the top to maximize the way it because of the way this stone was designed. You didn't have smooth coloring all the way through. So the lapidary made the facets on the top so it would actually enhance the darkness with the lights on the two sides, that the lighter colors on the side. That's what we have to do. We have to figure out what we are. Who are we? What do we do that's different? Every time you do something and someone says, man, how did you do that? That's your amethyst. That's your thing. Every time you drive a bus and you have, how those safety things, well, there's, 500 days without an accident. Because every time you drive that bus, those people in the back, the kids, the women, the men on the back, just trying to get to work, they are depending on you to be more than just silicon dioxide or just taking it as a job. They're depending on you to be amethyst, to be something more. And that's why it's all about a story, because that's something more. When you realize that, what that is called is awareness. Awareness is that, as I said to you, and those of you who have been following me for this show, I can't believe it's been 3 years. Those of you who follow this show know the 7 elements of a story. And what I'm talking about today is awareness. It's that moment when you realize that this is not something that you can do. This is something that you have to do. That's what Burt Monroe did. That's what made me feel so much about that movie, because he just took a dream and forever Whether you know him or not, forever he has that value. Forever he will stand. Look him up. Read his life. His father was a farmer. His sister died when he was a kid. And those things that he went through in his life, made him decide that this is what he wanted to be. That he wanted to live his life knowing that he went as fast as a human being can go. And he didn't buy some super powered bike. He didn't buy, the latest Harley or Yamaha. He had a 1920 motorcycle that he bought in 1920. And 47 years later, he broke the world land speed record because he realized he was more than just amethyst, more than just silicon dioxide. And that's the relationship. And I can do this all day long forever. Every gemstone has a spiritual, has a structural, has a chemical analogy to people. It's like, I'm amazed. I've been studying this stuff for 19 years now, and I'm amazed. Every time I look at it, I step back and go, damn, really? Because I never really understood how, of course, I knew about the chemical composition of amethyst. I knew how amethyst heated up, but I never really thought about how really unique amethyst is. Why? I understood the color, but what was it about the color? What was it about amethyst that made it so precious, so valued? There's other gemstones that come in a purple variety. But I think it's because of the ubiquitous nature of amethyst. I think it's because amethyst resonates with us on us being human beings, resonates with us on a spiritual level, because we know that it's different. We know that it's unique. And they didn't have, again, microscopes and electron spectroscopy and all that. They didn't have that. They knew that some person walking down a field saw this quartz, and because that quartz was out in the open, because that silicon dioxide was out in the open and it was crystallized, it became something special. So before we end, I want to tell you what the story of amethyst was. Actually, there's two separate stories. There's a story from Roman mythology and a story from Greek mythology. But I always like the story from Roman mythology. Amethyst, the gods, it was Dionysus. Dionysus was pissed off because there was mortals saying that they were as good as the gods. And Dionysus, the god of wine, he got upset. He was just like, you know what? I'm so tired of humans. I'm so tired of mortals thinking they're as good as us. I tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna make a road, and I'm gonna put two ferocious tigers on each side of the road. And the next person, fill in the blank, the next that comes down that road, they're gonna be eaten. And he waited, drank his wine, and he waited. And there was this beautiful woman. The first person to walk down that road was this beautiful chaste maiden. She was happy. She was just so excited. She was going to go and celebrate Diana, the god of the forest and hunting and things of this. And she was walking there, and because Diana saw her walking down this trail and said, oh my God, she's going to be killed. So what Diana did was she changed her into this crystalline structure. She made her into crystal. And Dionysus was so sad about what he had done. He was so sad that he literally was responsible for the death of this beautiful person who was beautiful not just on the outside, but in the inside. She was a beautiful soul. He was crying. And because he was the god of wine, his tears were purple. And he cried over this woman. And the end of the story is the name of the woman was Amethyst. And that's where the word amethyst comes from. That's where the name amethyst comes from. Because amethyst normally as a gemstone doesn't have a lot of inclusions in it. Amethyst is a pretty clear gemstone, just like that beautiful maiden, just like so many of you. Or just good on the inside. Who are just loving and good and caring and supportive on the inside. And because of who you are in the inside makes you interact with the light. So, what I wanted you to get out of this, I want you to see that all the things that make you special. I want you to take the time to realize all the things that make you special, whether you can cook, whether you can look a certain way, whether you can do your job, whether you can drive that bus, whatever you do, that's your thing. That's your iron. That's the element that makes you special. And once you understand that and understand that it's not a strange thing. You're not being boastful. You are just like amethyst. You came out of something so same, so mediocre, and yet you are something extraordinary. So please leave comments. Please subscribe. Just let me know if a brother's talking to you, if there's a little flavor for your ears. Just let me know that each week that what I'm saying resonates with you. So please subscribe. And again, I hope you got something out of today's show. My name is Barry B. Mixon, and I am a gemological storyteller. And please, for no other day, please take the time today to think about who you are and to begin the journey of discovering the value of your own stories. So until next week, au revoir, atatella, voila. Nothing has value without a story. That is the essence of Professor Barry's Science Emporium. Ladies and gentlemen, science is all around us. It is in everything that your child does. It is in everything that your child wants to be. So what I do is take their stories and incorporate it into the stories of the lessons that I want to teach in science and history. And I guarantee that at the end of the lesson, your child will either love science or have a much greater appreciation for science and history, because they will come to realize, as thousands of children have come to realize all over the world, is that at Professor Barry's Science Emporium, everything is science. I hope I have an opportunity to work with your child. Professor Barry's Science Emporium, where everything is science.